what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. I wish that I could change what you wanted. Why we always looking for more? Why we always looking for more?
The playoffs begin for the 5th season of the NCAA Duracell Cup Series, and they begin here tonight under the lights at the Richmond International Raceway. Good evening, everybody. I'm Seth Cole. Welcome to playoff race number 1 here, as 10 teams comprised of 3 drivers each get ready to begin the road to that championship trophy. And here tonight, we're going to get some, well, it is a track that's about a little more than a mile, a little less than a mile in length, but it is considered a short track on the schedule, so the nighttime is the right time, and maybe we'll see some tempers flare heading down this first round of the postseason. But it's going to be a lot of fun to see how Richmond plays its part into the outcome of this season's champion. We've got a lot of drivers here this evening, the Tri-Terry drivers that have the pressure on them now as playoff contenders to try and win their way into the next round. We've got, of course, other teams that just missed out on making the playoffs, whether it was not being able to get a win, having accumulated enough points, or not accumulating enough points after having a victory. They're obviously out there still trying to get as many victories for their respective teams as they can before the end of the season. Then you got those other teams out there that, they weren't in the hunt for the championship last week at Auto Club. They're just going to be out there trying to prove themselves against these top teams up there in the playoffs, trying to see if they can make a name for themselves, possibly in preparation to get themselves a good ride for Season 6 of Duracell Cup Series competition. But here tonight, it's going to be 80 laps of racing. Richmond has kind of flip-flopped in the last couple of seasons on what type of a race it is. Sometimes it's ended up being a race where it's been long green flag runs and come down to pit strategy. Other times, like last year, it was a bit of a wreck fest. It came down to survival, and we've ended up having, in the last 2 years, drivers be able to win their way in to the upcoming round of the playoffs. Of course, in the last 2 seasons, it was from the round of 16 to the round of 12. Here this season, only 10 teams are eligible in the playoffs. But, same rules may still apply here today, as you've got a couple of playoff hopefuls, or playoff advancing hopefuls, I should say. They are playoff contenders on the front row. James Shelley, former winner this season from the road course at Riverside, which helped to lock the 31 into this playoff position. He's going to be your pole sitter here tonight. Shelley, a Virginia native as well, so this could be a home track win if he's able to go coast-to-coast pole to win. He's alongside of Mike Tellier in the 55. That team out of Gunther Motorsports. Of course, Nick Gunther getting the victory back at Bristol Dirt. Don't want to call it a last-minute victory, but it kind of was. Penultimate race on the regular season. He's on the front row here with James Shelley, and Mike Tellier is looking for his first career win in Duracell Cup Series. I mean, what better place to do it than here tonight and clinch your team an opportunity into what would be the round of 8 in one very nice little package. Then you've got behind them some interesting stories of teams that were in the hunt, but either couldn't get the points or couldn't get the win. For Cole Deaver and the 0-3, that S3 Motorsports team, they were doing so well in points, they just didn't have that trip to victory lane to lock them in. On the flip side, you got Jacob Thibodeau, the 6 car out of Pigeon Racing. That team had the victory, but they couldn't get the points to get themselves above that cut line last week at Auto Club. So those are two teams, like I said, that just missed out. They'll still be out there to try and improve themselves in the final 10 races of the season. We're going to get to all the point scenarios and everything here in just a minute. But speaking of points, let's show you what the playoff points look like coming into tonight's event. So these were the teams that advanced last week. You saw it there in that post-race promo video to show you who was going to be battling here in the playoffs. You've got the 78 team up there in the number 1 seed. They won the regular season championship. They've got 3 victories on the season, 1 with Ryan Butcher, 2 with Diego Yepes. 20 points in hand over a 3 and make that 4-way tie for the second spot of teams that had 2 wins. The 19 team, those 2 wins with Carson Gum and Matthew Rodriguez. The 09 team wins with Kyle Matthews at Martinsville. And last week, Stephen Pollard III, his first career victory at Auto Club. You got the 77 team, both their wins with Roberto Crown Jr. The 95 team, both their wins with Sean Arndt. Then you've got the teams that made it in with a victory and through points. You got the 8 team, Daytona 500 winning team out of Haas Racing. Matt Haas was the one that locked them in with the victory in the Daytona 500 race. You've got the 47 car there, Stephen Colon, his victory locked them in. The 55 team, we already talked about Nick Gunther, his victory locking them in. William Micros, way back in the second race of the season at Manassas, his victory locked them into the playoffs for KB Racing Enterprises, and then getting the final spot, clinching that final spot by what was just a mere, I think it was 2 points if I recall correctly. The 31 team, the victory for that team, of course, as we documented, James Shelley at Riverside. They are the final team to battle for the playoffs here this season. So 8 will move on, 2 will be eliminated at the end of this first round of the playoffs. We'll have to wait and see what happens, and tonight is going to be the start of it. Let's go down trackside for pre-race ceremonies here at Richmond International Raceway, the national anthem, and the command to fire up the engines. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Drivers, start your engines!
Pace car going to lead the 29 car field off of pit lane. And as they do their one pace lap, let's give you the starting lineup for tonight's playoff opener at Richmond International Raceway. Pole sitter James Shelley going to lead us to the green alongside of Mike Tellier. Cole Deaver will share row 2 with Jacob Thibodeau. Andrew Gonzalez and Mitchell Collins, their blue ovals make up row 3. Reggie Fogelman and Michael Norman, they're back in row 4. The top 10 complete by Jackie Halleck and Zachary Taylor. Matthew Rodriguez, Roberto Crown Jr., the 2-time winner, they're going to be in row 6. Row 7, Andrew Davis and Will Goss. Adam Garcia, Riley Henry. Row 8, row 9, Ryan Acosta and Harrison Ponder, I should say. Top 20 complete by Colin Cropley and Benjamin Miles. Then it's Cat Batts and Jordan Lopez, row 11. Row 12, Caleb Fogler, Daniel Boyles. Then Carson Grob, Alex Tanker, Alexander Rowe, Pierce Crone, and Allison Rodrigo, the remainder of the field, as Shelley leads us into turn 1. 3 wide for second already as Mike Tellier got kicked way up out of the groove. Thibodeau shot up the middle, Deaver on the inside. Now they're going to be the battle for second, as still 3 wide around the 5th position. Shelley's going to lead lap 1. Deaver's going to drive it in, though, looking for the lead this time through 1 and 2, and he'll complete the pass. Now they're going to be 3 wide for second as Shelley almost gets the wall off the second corner. Boy, these guys not wasting time. As soon as the green flag dropped, double wide, 3 wide, all the way back through the field. Mitchell Collins now side by side with Jacob Thibodeau. That'd be for second place as Deaver shows the way. Mike Tellier's already dropped back to around 9th. Shelley's dropped back to 5th, and that was your front row. As the run goes on, you'll start to see that top side, that top groove get more and more rubber, more and more grip. That's why Thibodeau's been able to hold court against Mitchell Collins for that second position. Reggie Fogelman, you also see, has the option to ride behind the 17, but instead he's up there on the top side behind the 6. So we'll see how long it takes until those tires start wearing, and Mitchell Collins may have to give up the ground on the bottom. Deaver's loving this, though, because the more they battle for second place, the more they're hurting their lap times, and he can try scooting away. Deaver was a 2-time winner last year. So far this season, a 0 in the win column for him and the 0-3 team out of S3 Motorsports overall. Had a big opportunity if either he, Charles Sanford, or Jessica Shelton had been able to find victory lane this season, that we would have probably seen both of the S3 Motorsports cars in the playoffs. I believe that the 0-3 team was the 3rd highest team not able to make it into the playoffs this season. The 1 team out of Michael Norman Motorsports was the highest, and the 65 team out of Evan Gardner Motorsports was the 2nd highest. The 0-3 then followed 3rd team. Well, a couple of teams that have 2 victories on the season right now running 5th and 6th. 77 team, Roberto Crown Jr., who has both the victories for that Auto Junction Racing entry this year. That locked them into the number 4 seed when the playoff grid was put together. Trying to pick up win number 3 of his career and advance the 77 team into the round of 8. Right behind them, Zachary Taylor in the 95. Of course, Sean Arndt adds the 2 victories for that team out of Smart Motorsports that got them into the playoffs. But you know, it's interesting when you look at the teams and the drivers, where they were positioned here for this season. You had the primary drivers that had the goal of trying to get that big win in the Daytona 500, kind of set the tone for the respective team for the remainder of the season. The secondary drivers had the pressure of getting a last-minute spot in the playoffs last week at Auto Club, and then the Tri-Terry drivers here tonight, especially if they're playoff contenders, they have the task of seeing if they can get that golden ticket of advancing into the next round, the round of 8. There's not a whole heck of a lot we can guarantee here in the Duracell Cup Series since races are so unpredictable, but one thing we can tell you for certain is we will have a new driver taking a checkered flag here tonight at Richmond. All 4 of the former winners here at this racetrack are not in the field here tonight. They all still take part in the Duracell Cup Series, but they are not Tri-Terry drivers for their respective teams. Keith Batson was the winner here back in Season 1, Cody Lamas in Season 2. Back in those 2 seasons, Richmond was actually the second to last race of the regular season. It was then moved to the first playoff race where Carter Friesen in Season 3 and Dylan Young last year were able to use those said victories to advance into the next round of the playoffs. But none of those 4 drivers are in the field here this evening. They do have teammates that are in the field, so you've got to wonder if some of the knowledge was passed on as to how to approach this racetrack. And we may have a battle here for the lead in just a moment. I was watching Jacob Thibodeau, lap by lap, just close up to the back bumper of Cole Deaver, and as he's done so, Reggie Fogelman's actually reeled the both of them in also. We've got about 6 cars that are up here in this pack that might have a shot for the race lead. And if they start getting double file, then 7th place Matthew Rodriguez on back, they could start closing in. Kind of want want to go back and look at that battle going on 6th place on back or 7th place on back, but at the same time, we could have a battle for the lead, a move made for the lead, so we'll drop back here real quick. Got a pack of 5 with Rodriguez, Ryan Acosta, former champ there. Adam Garcia in the 2, Colin Cropley in the 0-1. And the 93 of Andrew Davis. Only 2 of those drivers in this group are playoff contenders. Rodriguez at the front of this pack and Davis in the 93 at the tail end of this pack. Further back, is that the 21? That is Alison Rodrigo. He rolled off the grid last, 29th. 17 laps in, he's already up to the 13th position. Great drive for him. Another thing that we can also state is that there's only one driver that has an opportunity now of being a repeat champion in the Duracell Cup Series. Ryan Acosta, Chris Dollerton, and Jordan Lopez all failed to advance here into the playoffs with their respective teams. The only driver that has a shot of being a 2-time Duracell Cup Series champ would be the defending champion, Carson Gum. But he'll have to rely not only on his performance, but Matthew Rodriguez here tonight and Charles Belding. Carson Gum will be in the car next week when these drivers head to the Charlotte Roval. And then the first elimination race will be taking place in Indianapolis. That's when Charles Belding will get inside of the race car. Primaries next week at the road course and secondaries in the elimination race at the long historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Cole Deaver has led all but one lap here tonight. James Shelley led the first lap, and Deaver has led since then. Trying to remember where Deaver's second victory was last year. I remember his first career victory came at the Indianapolis road course. Off the top of my head, I can't remember where win number 2 came for him. He's looking for win number 3 for the 03. The GM Goodwrench Service Plus colors. Of course, the legendary Dale Earnhardt driving that scheme. Deaver, a diehard Dale Earnhardt senior fan. He's got Jacob Thibodeau right behind him there, though, in the 6. That team just missing out on making it into the playoffs. First time in a long time that Zach Rogers is not a playoff contender. Jacob Thibodeau was a playoff driver for the last 2 seasons. And we mentioned about Carter Friesen, the former winner last year, advancing his way into the then round of 12 with that victory. He was a playoff contender then. All 3 of those drivers, though, not in the hunt for the championship this season. And I feel like I'm hearing some engines up ahead. Leaders might be already encountering traffic. They're just now going through 1 and 2, and there is Alexander Rowe just exiting out of 2 about midway down the back straightaway as we've got a car on pit road. That's the 8 of Pierce Crone, playoff contender. And is this a regularly scheduled stop or not is the big question. Let's follow this pit stop and see if it's just going to be normal service, because if it is, then we might have an idea of what our fuel window is already. 25 laps in. Nobody else coming to pit road right now. But I was noticing that 78 running back here and the 47. Those are 2 playoff contending teams. The 47 was in the 7th seed coming into this race. And of course, the 78 car was the points leader. And you see in the same shot, there is race leader Cole Deaver closing in. Well, last week, we had a number of drivers, a number of teams that looked like they were going to advance into the playoffs that did not get the finishes they were looking for. They still made it into the postseason, but they certainly didn't carry very good momentum into the playoffs. A lot of drivers DNFing, a lot of drivers finishing a lap down outside of the top 15, and doing well in the playoffs, momentum counts for just as much, really, as anything. Pierce Crone has returned back to the racetrack, 2 laps down, and since nobody else has come down pit road, I have to assume that was an unscheduled stop. Not certain what exactly it was, but it is going to put that 8 car behind the 8 ball, no pun intended, heading into the next 2 races of this round of the playoffs. They were the number 6 seed coming into this race. They were the highest seeded team with 1 victory on the year. And now the battle for the lead might come down to how you make your way through traffic. Cole Deaver has caught Alexander Rowe, the only driver out of the 78 team that has not gone to victory lane, and he's holding up Cole Deaver. Deaver forfeited the bottom, and Thibodeau crosses him over, and he'll go to the point. Deaver not going to be too happy with that 78 car for sure. Thibodeau now to the lead. Second place will go to Reggie Fogelman. Deaver's troubles aren't over. Zachary Taylor going to take a look on the inside for third, as Deaver now going to clear across the nose of the 95. Looks like he'll keep third place. Finally migrating to the bottom. Jacob Thibodeau going to have to deal with Harrison Ponder. Benjamin Miles just up ahead there as well. Benjamin Miles was actually the driver that Jacob Thibodeau took over for back when they both raced for Northeast Motorsports. Looks like maybe Miles going to yield the inside there to the faster 6. So we're starting to get quite a number of drivers at the tail end of the pack, put -1. That's certainly a far cry from what we had last season. The Wreckfest of Richmond, and let's call a spade. That's exactly what it was. Dylan Young was just barely able to survive in that one. To be able to pick up last year's victory is now Carson Grob goes a lap down in the 65. Will Goss next on the hit list for Jacob Thibodeau, and he'll complete that pass very easily. Thibodeau's doing a nice job picking his moments of when to make passes on these tail end of the lead lap drivers. Riley Henry next on his hit list. There you see him show the nose early down the back straightaway, indicating, hey, I'm gonna be to your inside by the time we get to turn 3. Give me the space. As long as you don't make a late move on somebody, you're probably gonna be able to make a clean and safe pass. Caleb Fogler in the 09 just up ahead. That car went to victory lane last week with Stephen Pollard III to absolutely ensure that they were going to go playoff racing. And ooh, there you see, tried to throw the block on Thibodeau, and Thibodeau said, nuh-uh. Almost wrecked Caleb Fogler going into turn 3. Mike Tellier's up next. Tellier was starting the outside of the front row. We saw him get kicked up to the outside 3 wide in the opening stages, and he has drifted all the way back to 20th position. And now he's about to go a lap down to Thibodeau. Next up, Michael Norman. How many drivers are we going to have on the lead lap when this race is over? We're not even halfway through this race. And 19th place just went a lap down to race leader Jacob Thibodeau. But Thibodeau hasn't gotten away from his competition. Reggie Fogelman, Zach Taylor, and Cole Deaver, every car that Thibodeau has passed, they have followed him through, so they are still there. Jackie Halleck now going to go a lap down to Jacob Thibodeau. So we will have 17 cars on the lead lap at this point in time, nearing the halfway point of this race. Right now, the 95 is our highest running playoff contending team. Came into this race the number 5 seed, Zach Taylor, looking for his first win of his career, but you can't get a victory, you want to get max points to try and advance your way into the next round of the playoffs. Only 2 teams get eliminated in each round of the playoffs. We whittle it down from 10 to 8, then from 8 to 6, and then from 6 to our final 4 in the season finale. So as long as you can stay ahead of the 8th in the standings cut line in these 3 races of round 1, you should be good to advance. Right now, Roberto Crown Jr., the second highest running of the playoff contenders, in the 5th position, dealing with the lap car of Jackie Halleck. Then you drop back here, 3 wide. Drop back to Matthew Rodriguez, who right now has his hands full with Colin Cropley and Adam Garcia. He's holding on to 7th place as they currently run. Andrew Gonzalez, he's 4th highest running playoff driver. He's in the 10th position. Now looking for 9th on Adam Garcia, as Garcia gets held up behind the lap machine of Harrison Ponder. Davis will take that spot. Trying to see where our next playoff driver would be. I think the rest of our playoff drivers might be off the lead lap. At 31, pole sitter James Shelley just went a lap down just a moment ago. 16th place is where he's running. Saw Mike Tellier go a lap down moments ago. In fact, instead of cycling through, we could just tell you based off the running order. So right now, you've got Shelley a lap down in 16th. You've got Mike Tellier a lap down in 20th. Caleb Vogler 21st. And the two teams right now, well, three teams, I should say, that are not in line for good points nights would be the 47 team with Boyles running a lap down in 27th. The 78 team with Rowe a lap down in 28th. And Pierce Crone 3 laps down to the leader after an unscheduled pit stop in 29th. And those three teams came into this race in the 1, 6, and 7 seeds. Cody Smart and Cole Deaver made their way around Reggie Fogelman for second and third. Now it's the 95 hounding the 6 for the top position. And we still have a round of pit stops. These drivers cannot make it 80 laps on what they've got in the tank, but they have been able to make it halfway, past halfway, so only one pit stop here tonight. It's going to be the money stop. Zach Taylor, nice run there out of turn 2. He might have a shot for the race lead here on Jacob Thibodeau if he can get another good exit out of turn 4 here onto the front stretch. Oh, tried to move him, tried to use the chrome horn, the bump and run. Thought about it, but I don't think he did make contact with the back bumper of the Steak and Shake Chevrolet, and that time might have tried to outbrake the 6 and ran a little bit wide through 3 and 4, so he'll lose some ground heading back to the start-finish line. Only one driver up here in this lead group. 2 drivers inside of the top 5 could advance into the round of 8 with a victory here tonight. The other 3 are all just looking for victories here. Reggie Fogelman, former winner this season, looking for his second career win. For Thibodeau, I believe he'd be looking for career win number 5 after being a 2-time winner in both season 3, which was his rookie season, and last year season 4. For Cole Deaver, he's looking for career win number 3, being a 2-time winner last year in what was his debut season for S3 Motorsports. 50 laps under our belts. We have avoided the caution. As a result of the long green flag run, though, we only have 15 drivers on the lead lap. Alex Tanker is the last of those, and he's only about a straightaway ahead of this battle for the race lead between Thibodeau and Taylor. Several teams, if you're just joining us, going to be heading into the Charlotte Roval next week, needing to gain back a lot of points that they lost. The 8 had to come down pit road for an unscheduled stop, has lost 3 laps as a result. Right now running dead last in the order. 78 and the 47, they both got lapped very early on. They are running the last cars 1 lap down in 27th and 28th. And don't forget, the 78 team came into this race as the number 1 seed. 3 victories on the year, 2 with Diego Yepes, 1 with Ryan Butcher. They also won the regular season championship. All those bonus points that they accumulated during the course of a regular season, they may be all thrown away here tonight in the result of 1 poor performance in the opening playoff race. They were 20 points ahead of the 19, the 09, the 77, the 95 teams. And right now we know that 3 of those 4 teams are running well, all up inside of the top 10. The 95's in 2nd, the 77's in 5th, and the 19 is in 7th. Jacob Thibodeau, in the next 3 laps or so, he will have led the most laps here tonight. As, well, maybe not. He's coming to pit road. Deaver's going to stay out. Crown Jr. is going to stay out. Here's the money stop. Which is the better decision? Come down early or come down later? Looks like Allison Rodrigo had already been on pit road the lap before. Same for Jordan Lopez, Colin Cropley as well. So Cole Deaver led that lap. I was going to mention that Deaver up to that point had led 28 laps. 25 laps led for Jacob Thibodeau. So Deaver now, along with Roberto Crown Jr. coming down pit lane, which should be maybe a little bit less congested. Going to have those drivers that had just come down pit road the lap before exiting pit road, so you'll have to be aware of that. There goes Taylor down and away. Don't know just how far behind he was of Jacob Thibodeau. Couldn't see it there. As Deaver to the attention of his crew, and I don't believe anybody stayed out past that, so may come down between Deaver and Thibodeau for who's going to be the race leader. And look at the traffic that Thibodeau came out in the middle of. But I think he did gap the 95 of Taylor, and he will bypass the 03 of Cole Deaver. So Jacob Thibodeau, I think, is going to be the race leader when all cycles around. Now has to jump to the top side of Jackie Halleck, Caleb Fogler as they're coming down pit road. And to the top of the board, indeed, does go Jacob Thibodeau. Up to second place scoring right now is the 11 of Will Goss. But they're saying that he has not come to pit road yet. Neither has Benjamin Miles, scored in third place. Now they're going to come down pit lane. Looks like Deaver was able to leapfrog the 95 for second. And so he's going to now try and reel in Jacob Thibodeau, but there's about 2 seconds between those two drivers. There's Mike Tellier leaving pit lane in the 55 car. So Thibodeau versus Deaver. Pretty much for the race victory here tonight, unless we get ourselves a freak caution that's going to shuffle everything up. We'll wait until scoring is official and the pit stop cycles are completed to let you know who's on the lead lap and who isn't. And oh boy, Thibodeau is going to have a lot of company here with him, urging back onto the racetrack with fresh tires. That might be exactly what Cole Deaver wants to see. And Deaver's actually got a teammate about 2 cars up of the race leader, Caleb Fogler in the 09. We'll see if he might play a little defense for him as, boy, Will Goss, Benjamin Miles, Alexander Rowe, they were almost 3 wide coming off of pit lane exit right there. There you go, Fogler through the block, I should say, dropped down in front of Jacob Thibodeau, trying to hold him up and allow Cole Deaver to reel in Thibodeau for the race lead. The gap has slowly been increasing, though, even with the addition of this traffic, now about 2.2 seconds. Deaver's got traffic to deal with of his own. He just got past Benjamin Miles, now trying to get by Will Goss, and the battle for second might be closing up quicker than the battle for the race lead, because Zach Taylor, who got really loose there off of turn 4, he's starting to close in on the 03. Reggie Fogelman, the 44, also starting to close in, so we could have a 3-way battle for second as Jacob Thibodeau continues to put some daylight between himself and the runner-up drivers. I'm trying to recollect in Season 2, if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong in this, and I will check back just to make sure, but Cody Lamas, when he won here, I believe he was driving a Toyota then for Michael Norman Motorsports. I might be wrong. But if that is indeed the case, then that means that the only manufacturer that has not won here at Richmond in the history of the Duracell Cup Series is Dodge. Because Keith Batts and Dylan Young have won here in Fords. Carter Friesen won here in a Chevrolet. And so if Cody Lamas was in a Toyota, then that means that 3 of the 4 manufacturers have won here at this short track. Remember, I also told you that Carter Friesen was a former winner here, advanced his way into the playoffs with said victory. Well, he's a teammate to Jacob Thibodeau here in that 6 car out of Pigeon Racing. So I'm certain that Jacob Thibodeau asked Carter Friesen if he had any advice, any tricks of the trade of how to approach this racetrack. And if Friesen gave him some secrets, Jacob Thibodeau has put them to good use. Thibodeau started this race from the 4th position. He has now led the most laps. He's about to complete his 36th lap led here tonight. He's less than 15 laps away from maybe picking up a checkered flag, which would be the first of the season, third of his career, and second for this 6 team out of the Pigeon Racing stables. Here's the battle for second. Cole Deaver in the 03, 95 of Zachary Taylor, and we have a battle for fourth as well, as Roberto Crown Jr. has caught up to Reggie Fogelman. Now Roberto is being put up to the top side by the lap machine of Mitchell Collins. That'll lose him some ground in that switch dodge. And you got to go quite a ways back here before you get to another battle. Colin Cropley, Matthew Rodriguez, as Mike Tellier and Pierce Crone are kind of holding that 0-1 car up. Jordan Lopez has made his way up into the top 10, the former champ running in 9th, and can't say enough about the run of Allison Rodrigo, starting shotgun on the field, and right now in the 10th position, that bright green Insignia HDTV Ford Mustang out of No Limits Racing. Now, we have not had a caution here tonight, but if we're going to get one, it might take place in this pack. I think that 8 car, we saw him make an unscheduled pit stop early on in this race. I think he might be down a cylinder. That car is just not carrying the speed on the straightaway that the others are. Seems to be okay through the corners, but he is really struggling on the straights, which says to me he might be down 4th gear. Let's find out. Let's go inside. Not sure if something might be wrong with his shifter, because you didn't even hear him downshift going into the corners. But certainly sounds like that thing bogs down when he's trying to get back into the throttle off the corners. So I think he's got some kind of a mechanical problem that's going on. Again, that is a playoff contending team. Another playoff contending team after that pit stop cycle was completed. The 55, Mike Tellier, extended stay for him. He is now the last car in the running order in the 29th position, 3 laps down. Almost wondering if maybe Mike Tellier, when we saw him get put 3 wide in the early stages of this race, he might have brushed the wall, received some damage, and that might have been why he spent the extra time on pit lane. But there's a lot of teams I'm looking at right now that are way down there in the running order that are playoff contending teams. Caleb Fogler's in 20th, Alexander Rose 25th, Daniel Boyles 26th, Pierce Crone 28th, Mike Tellier 29th. So at least half of our playoff contending teams are currently scored outside of the top 20. This is the best battle right now up towards the front in the closing stages of this race. Cole Deaver versus Zachary Taylor, but it's for the 2nd position and taking place just a tick under 3 seconds behind the race leader Jacob Thibodeau, who right now is just kind of out for a Sunday drive. He's had the occasional car he's had to pass in terms of traffic, but hasn't had to deal with much. Last car he just got around was James Shelley. That's a teammate, so not much of a fight I don't think was going to be put up there. And now he's got quite a bit of daylight before he gets to the next machine, which would be that 8 of Pierce Crone, who is way off the pace. I don't even know if he'll get to him before the conclusion of this one. As that time by, it was 2 laps to go. Well, you think about what could have been. The 6 team was right there in the hunt to point their way into the playoffs last week, but Zach Rogers had misfortunes at Auto Club. They could not point their way in. Now 1 week later, Jacob Thibodeau says, hey, if we had been in the playoffs, we would have been the team to beat. Statement victory here tonight. Not going to advance them into the next round of the playoffs, but it will be a feel-good victory for this team. Jacob Thibodeau is going to take the checkered flag here tonight at Richmond. First win of the season for him, 3rd of his career, and the 2nd win for the 6 team out of Pigeon Racing. A dominant performance here tonight, split between himself and 2nd place finishing Cole Deaver. They led all but 2 laps tonight Actually, correction, all but one lap tonight between the two of them. The other driver that led the lap was James Shelley. And nice to see a green flag race here at Richmond after the fiasco we had last year. With Jacob Thibodeau winning here tonight as well, no automatic lock-in for any of the 10 playoff teams. They will have to continue to rely on points heading into next week at the Charlotte Roval. As we show you now the finishing results. 15 cars officially finished on the lead lap. Going to be some good points days for a few of the playoff contending teams, though. The 95 team with third place with Zachary Taylor. The 77 team, sixth with Roberto Crown Jr. The 19 team, eighth with Matthew Rodriguez. The 93 team, 12th with Andrew Davis. And the 31 team, 16th with James Shelley. They were the only teams that finished up there at least close to the top 15. Then the 09 and 20th, 78, 47, the 8, and the 55 all down here. 25th, 27th, 28th, and 29th. So there's going to be a lot of shaking up of points for sure of who is going to be where heading into next week when we go to the road course configuration at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Great runs here tonight as well, though, for the non-playoff drivers. You've got Cole Deaver with a solid outing in second. Keep feeling that, even though they aren't in the playoffs, that 03 team, they are very close to breaking into victory lane. Shelton, Sanford, and Deaver. Mitchell Collins, great run there for the 17 team. That team's been struggling this season. Nice to see them get a good performance here tonight. Colin Cropley, that team just missed out on making the playoffs last week. He'll bring it home in 7th. Another team that just barely missed out on making the playoffs last week, the 32 team, Ryan Acosta brings home in 9th. And how about Allison Rodrigo? Started 29th here tonight, dead last. And within, 20 laps, had worked his way up inside the top 15, and a solid outing for that team. Top 10 run in that 10th position. Kat Batson there in the 39. Good run for her there in 13th. We talked about Carter Friesen giving advice to Jacob Thibodeau. Keith Batson, who won this race back in Season 1, certain that he gave Kat some tips on how to be able to get around this racetrack. Matter of fact, he had both the KB Racing Enterprises cars finish one behind the other in 12th and 13th place. Dylan Young, former winner, his teammate Adam Garcia there, bringing it home in 14th place. So some pretty good performances here tonight as well for drivers and teams that are just trying to finish out the season on a high note in these final 10 races of the year. Not in the hunt for that championship, just out there trophy hunting and trying to get max points. A lot of them trying to finish 11th in the overall point standings if they can. Highest team to not be in the playoff grid. Speaking of the playoff grid, points have been calculated now after what we saw take place. And here's a look at them heading into next week at the Charlotte Roval. So next week, it'll be the primary drivers going back to work. Nobody is advanced into the round of 8 as of yet. They'll look to see if they could do it next week. Of course, for the drivers that had struggles here tonight, their primary drivers will look to bounce back and gain back the points that were lost. For the teams that did well tonight, the primary drivers will look to continue that momentum in their quest to advance into the round of 8. But hope you guys enjoyed tonight's race here this evening from Richmond International. If you did, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to Part of the Crew today. We've shown you full figure results, and we've shown you your playoff points heading into next week. We'll see you guys then at the Charlotte Roval. Until then, I've been Seth Cole, and you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the NNSCRA Offline Racing at its best.